closed everybody's microphone so we don't have too much interference. As much as I'd love to chat to all of you, it's just a lot easier to do a presentation this way where we don't have everybody talking over each other. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and I will answer them at the end of the presentation. I just want to confirm that everybody can hear me clearly. If there is anybody that's having any sound issues, if you can just let me know in the chat box at the bottom, and we'll see if we can't sort that out. Right, it doesn't seem like anybody's having any issues, so let's get started. When we talk about SARS housekeeping, we're talking about making sure all your affairs are in order with SARS. And while you're still celebrating your first or your 25,000th customer and enjoy the success of your business, it is easy to forget that there are certain things you need to keep up to date at the revenue service, or SARS as they are more commonly known. Let's have a look at the 7 things you often forget or don't even know about, but will trip you up at the most inconvenient time. The 7 things we are going to look at today will be registering with SARS, registering with the Department of Labor, updating your company details with SARS, deregistering with SARS, what details you need, making monthly payments, and a list of offenses. I know a lot of these seem very obvious, but a lot of people don't know that they have to do this, in which case a few months or years down the line, SARS is going to nail you for not having done it at the time. Let's look at number 1. Registering with SARS. I know this seems like an obvious one, but the hitch here is when you register. A lot of potential new clients at Paymaster tell us that they have started a business and will register when they start trading or employ their first staff member. There is a lot of confusion when they submit their first return and see SARS have levied interest and penalties on the payment. How is this possible? SARS requires you to register your business within 21 days after you become an employer. So before you've even made your first cent as a new business, you need to register with SARS. It takes a few weeks to get the registration through and receive your pay-as-you-earn registration number. Only then can you make a payment or submit documents, and so it is recommended that all of this gets done before you start trading to avoid any nasty surprises. One of the things we see most often is when a company is applied for their pay-as-you-earn reference number. They then start trading or they start employing people, and then when they make their first payment, SARS has taken 3 or 4 months to get them their pay-as-you-earn number, in which case they need to submit the MP201 data and the payments for 3 or 4 months all in one go. And SARS says, thanks very much, that'll be 10% interest and penalties, and you then need to submit a letter and ask SARS to please reverse the interest and penalties because they took forever to issue you with your number, and it just becomes a whole big headache that almost never goes away. So the best thing to do is don't even start trading before you have your pay-as-you-earn number. I see Claudia saying that she's got a problem with her sound. Is there anybody else that has an issue with the sound? I'm just going to type to her in the chat box. Oh, Ishra, I'm sorry that you're experiencing a lot of static. Is anybody else having an issue with the sound? Oh my goodness, I do apologize for the static. What I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the presentation. It will be uploaded for you to be able to review, and we will review the sound settings before we send out the link. So I do apologize for the sound. I will try and keep the static to a minimum if possible. Let's move on to the next slide. Registering with the Department of Labor. When we take on new clients, we need a UIF registration number. Is this the number that starts with a U and is like the pay-as-you-earn number with SARS? No, that is the UIF reference number. Oh dear, we don't have one of those. That's what we hear with almost every new client that we take on. When you register with SARS, you need to register with the Department of Labour separately, and then you will be issued with a UIF registration number. Too many people think if you register with SARS, this part of registering for UIF happens automatically. It is very important to ensure that this is done at the same time as you pay as you earn registration with SARS. It's very frustrating for us that there's no official documentation or notification from SARS that says, have you registered with the Department of Labour? Because registering with SARS is not the only UIF registration you need to do. They don't give any information to new companies, so it causes quite a lot of frustration for everybody. So as it says, registering with SARS does not automatically register you for UIF, so that's just something that new companies need to keep in mind. Updating your company details. This one seems like an obvious no-brainer as well, but the idea of going into a SARS branch just to change a telephone number or address seems like too much hassle, and so a lot of companies just let it slide, hoping it will somehow correct itself or go away. It's quick and easy to update your details on e-filing, which we recommend to our clients to avoid going into a branch. These are the details that need to be kept updated with SARS within 21 working days of the change. Your postal address, your physical address, the representative taxpayer, the banking details of your organization, as well as the email contact details. Deregistering with SARS. If you close your business, please deregister your company. SARS wastes forests of trees sending out letters to companies that are no longer trading, to addresses that have long since changed tenants or ownership, or bugs an email inbox that no longer exists. This deregistration needs to happen within 14 days of you ceasing to be an employer. The deregistration will only happen if your records with SARS are clear and you don't have any credits, which isn't likely, or money owing to them. If your statement is not clear, your account will need to be sorted out before you can be properly deregistered. What details do you need to keep? The official SARS guide says every employer must keep a record of all remuneration paid, employees' tax deducted in respect of each employee, and UIF contributions. This register must contain personal particulars as well as financial details of each employee. So this section can be broken down into two subsections, the employer and the employee. The employer needs to keep records of amounts of remuneration paid, employees' tax deducted, and the employee's income tax number. The RP5 details also fall within this category. The employee must supply the following information: your surname, your full name, address, ID or passport number, and the date of birth and income tax number if there is. This detail for employee and employer must be kept for a minimum of 5 years, although SARS likes to frustrate everybody by requesting a proof of payment for skills development levy 13 years later. And to write them a letter to say, but your rules say you don't have to keep it for longer than 5 years, doesn't fly with them. It's incredibly frustrating. So best thing to do, just keep it just about forever. Making monthly payments. Here's another obvious one, but there are still so many instances where we are told, oops, sorry, please can you sort that out for us? We didn't make that payment, or the payment was late, or the MP1 wasn't submitted. Whether it is the data submitted, which are the figures for the month, or the actual payment, these two go hand in hand and need to both be done every single month. Even if it is a null return, which is when your pay as you earn and UIF are 0. This is possible if your employees are under the tax bracket and works less than 24 hours a month, for example. No return will equal a big headache. If you pay late, then interest and penalties are raised on your account every single day. The penalties are 10% of your total MP1 value, and the interest is levied every single day. So the longer you leave it, the more you're going to have to pay up to SARS. Payments must be made in SARS's account by 3 p.m. on the 7th of each month. If this falls over a weekend or a public holiday, the payment must reach them the working day before the 7th. Late data or payments will haunt you for years. So here's my advice, don't even consider it. And finally, we look at the SARS list of offences. These are what SARS considers an offence and are liable to a fine or even imprisonment. If you fail to deduct employees' tax from remuneration, if you fail to pay over the tax to SARS, if you use the tax deducted for anything other than a payment to SARS, if you knowingly permit a false IRP5 or IC3A to be issued, if you withhold amounts from another person's remuneration illegally, if you issue a document purporting to be an IRP5 and you are not an employer or have the authority from the employer to issue that tax certificate, if you fail to comply with the tax directive issued by SARS with no just cause, if you give false information or mislead your employer regarding the amount of tax to be withheld, if the employer fails to give their employees a copy of their IRP5s, if you fail to keep or maintain a record of remuneration paid and tax deducted, if you fail to register with SARS as an employer, if you fail to notify SARS of a change of address, if you fail to deregister your company, and if you fail to comply with a written request for information. So basically, if you breathe too loudly, you'll be in trouble with SARS. So that's all we have for today for keeping SARS happy with regards to the information they have on their systems about your company. Other than the sound that was a bit of an issue for some, are there any questions? Zildine is asking, can we get a copy of this? Yes, I'll be sending a copy to everybody that has joined me. Dave is asking, how long is an employer required to keep IRP5 certificates? Legally, SARS says 5 years, but they have in the past asked for information going back 8, 9, 10 years, and a letter saying your rules say 5 years, so we don't have to supply them, doesn't actually fly with them anymore. So unfortunately, it just seems like you need to keep it forever. Dave is asking, what do you do if one is requested and we do not have it? If you can restore a backup of your payroll or get a copy of an IRP5, I would suggest making a plan. Fighting SARS is a long and arduous headache. Okay, great. Thanks everybody for joining me. I will be sending out a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording. Enjoy the rest of your day. Dave, I'm sorry to pop in again. What I suggest you do is just pop me an email. When you receive a link to being able to download this presentation, just pop me an email about your missing IRP5 and we'll see what we can do to assist you. Okay, great. Have a good Thursday, everybody. Thanks so much.